In this episode, I'll be giving my review and reaction to the 2001 movie Spirited Away. So let's get spirited away and get right into this movie. Before watching Spirited Away, I did not have high expectations. I didn't really know what I was getting myself into. I feel like if you've seen a bunch of my reviews on this channel, you'd know that I'm not really an animation fan, and I don't really watch these movies that are meant for kids. But is this movie really meant for kids, or is there actually some good stuff here? I think this is actually a pretty good movie, and I was pretty surprised with what we were seeing. And you hear these tales of, this director, Hayao Miyazaki. Sorry for butchering your name, brother. But I don't know. This was a pretty solid film, in my opinion. I thought this movie had a lot of good themes going on, a lot of good messaging. I think this will definitely be one that I could show to my kids in the future. And here we are 25 years later, the same themes still apply. The animation is a little bit weird at different points, I thought, but it's 2001 animation. It holds up pretty well still in the present day. This movie is on HBO Max if you're trying to go check that out. But yeah, I thought the main character, Chiriho, I'm sorry if that's not your name and I'm butchering it, Chiriho, though, I thought she was pretty affable, pretty empathetic, and actually a pretty good main character for this story. I think, there's a lot going on in this movie, a lot of different characters at play, a lot of different plot lines, a lot of different stuff happening, but it's not too hard to keep track of. And this does, like, 2 hours, 5 minutes, that feels like proper runtime. Like, it felt like a proper completed story. Sometimes I come on here and complain on a movie's too short or a movie's too long. But yeah, I thought this overall was a pretty surprisingly solid watch. You kind of initially look at this from the outside looking in and you're like, oh, I don't know. But I like this. I thought this was a pretty good movie. So let's get into my thoughts and reactions throughout the movie. Starting it out with Chiriho. She is moving away. And I wrote in my notes, I hope this movie isn't as sad like this throughout the rest of the movie because damn, this was a sad introduction. A lot of kids move away early on in their lives. I moved when I was 3 and stayed in the same house for 15 years. I was lucky. I know people who move in, there's the new kid going around at school. Is he going to make any friends or is she going to make any friends? So that's a sad start to this one right off the bat. And the parents, I have a lot to say about the parents in this movie. They're supposed to be moving into this new house, right? And the mom's like, we gotta get there before the movers get there. But the dad's like, oh, let's take this side road because the house is just up there, but let's take the ominous side road into the woods. And when they take the side road, the dude's going 90 miles an hour in the woods. Like, be fucking for real, dude. Like, what are we doing here? You got a kid in the back seat. I don't think Chiriho has her seatbelt on. And even the mom's like kind of egging him on at first, but she's like, you should slow down, Peter, or whatever his name is. And he's like, nah, he's just gunning it. And I always think about when I have kids how I'm gonna have to drive slow, because I do drive pretty fast. I always drive 15 to 20 miles over the speed limit. Arrest me, they've tried, I've been pulled over, all that. But this was absurd. When I have an 11-year-old kid in the back, I'm not going fucking 90 miles an hour on a wooded path road. And luckily, he's able to corral himself before they run into this bump in the road, because that could have just been the end of the movie right there. Imagine they just crash. That could have been really bad. So I don't know why he was going so fast. And we'll get into more about how these parents are not doing great to start it off. So they got out of the car and they're just like, let's go into this ominous tunnel and nothing bad will happen out here. But really, it's like Chiriho's like the smart one as an 11-year-old kid. And it's kind of sad to see her be like, why are we going in here? What are we doing? And they're like, you're an idiot. We're just going to go do this. And we smell good food. So we're just going to go to this place that has good food and eat it. And, there's no waiter or no cook there, but we have morals. We're just going to start eating this food. It's awful, and they don't even know what the food is. They're like, it's really good. You should come and eat some. Luckily, Chiriho doesn't eat any, because if she did eat some, she turned into a little piglet and this movie would be nothing. But yeah, they turn into freaking slobbering pigs, literally, when Chiriho takes a step away. She goes on a little side quest. I forget what she was doing. She comes back and her parents are turned into literally slobbering pigs. Now, something I've been thinking of. I don't know if this is, well, no, it can't be. I was gonna say, is this movie just all a dream? It can't be because she has the headband at the end, so it is canon, as you know, as the Star Wars and Marvel fans say. Whatever. Seeing your parents turning into slobbering pigs is terrifying. So initially, off the bat, this poor girl's moving away from her house, and then she sees her parents become friggin' slobbering pigs. Get me out of there, coach. I'd give up right away, right there. And I'm 25, not 11. But yeah, sad stuff happening where luckily she runs into our man Hafu, and he is able to or Haku, and he is able to sort of help out the situation, alleviate the situation. He's like, hold your breath over this bridge. And then, of course, she, at the last second, lets out a breath. And the frog's like, human! And they all try and chase after her. I don't know what. It's kind of a weird premise of this universe. What's really going on in this universe? What's happening? Why are they turned into animals? Why do they not like humans? It's never really explained, but it doesn't really like necessarily need to be explained. We kind of just like float the dynamics of it. Essentially, Haku's like, you got to go find Kamaji. And I like Kamaji in this movie. He seems like a beast. And initially off the bat, she walks into his room. He's got 8 legs going all over the place. He uses like little soot like minions to actually do his work for him. So I liked what Kamaji had going on. And he's like, I can't give you a job, which was an initially confusing scene because Haku's like, if you have to get a job with Kamaji, like you have to insist or else, you're cooked. And he's going to try and get you to not do it, but you have to. And he's going to try and get you to go talk to your Baba, but you have to do it. And then Kamaji's like, go talk to your Baba. And she's like, okay. And that's it. Like I thought it was like, she's cooked, she's done for. I thought we weren't supposed to trust Yubaba, but she goes up to Yubaba. Yubaba's this crazy witch woman. She's got all types of shit going on here. And she tries to kind of scare Chihiro off, where she's like, you're lazy, you're stupid, you're unemployed. What's that? Oh, that's from the Frank Ocean Facebook story. But what was the judgment? And like, she's an 11-year-old kid, Yubaba. You're friggin' taking care of a big baby, literally a big baby. What was this judgment for? Crazy off the initial rip right there, but essentially, Yubaba has to give an oath to anyone who asks for a job. What a loophole, because if you didn't have that loophole, you'd be cooked. And luckily, Chiriho knows to ask for a job, and she was like, Yubaba's like, why did I say that if they ask for a job, I have to give it to them, especially a lazy 11-year-old who's no good for nothing. First of all, Yubaba, 11-year-olds don't work, okay? They're not really reliable sources, but whatever. So Chiriho gets this job with a person named Lynn. Lynn's kind of just whatever throughout the movie, but she's cool. She's cool. She hates on Haku, and Haku's my man, so I don't know. I don't like that part of it, but Lynn cool besides that. While Chiriho is working her job, she seemingly has something helping her out, a little secret spirit walking around. It's kind of like got that almost like a Scream face on it, like kind of like a Jason Voorhees mask. It's kind of just this big or this like walking spirit. It's a ghost. So I thought the spirit was helping out our girl Chiriho, and I think this spirit gives her something, and there's some sort of connection here between the spirit and Chiriho because it kind of follows her around throughout the movie and is trying to like later on it like when it's crashing out it like only wants to talk to Chiriho, but Chiriho's like, I think that's kind of a big theme of this movie too, is they all, well, we'll get to that part, but some sort of connection here going on. I wrote in my notes, I have no clue what's going on with the secret spirit. Turns out it's a character called No Face, and they walk around and just kind of wreak havoc, but we'll get to that in a second. While Chiriho's working this job, of course, they tell her and Lynn to eat shit and basically wash out the biggest tub possible, the ugliest, stinkiest tub, which I guess this whole entire enterprise is a bathhouse. So you got your bathhouses for stink spirits, which I guess is the thing here, and this big ass stink spirit comes in, slobbering, disgusting, gross, dirty, leaking everywhere. And they're able to alleviate the situation. Well, no, it's really Chiriho who's able to alleviate the situation using the water. She notices there's something plugged into his side that he can't reach, and she pulls it out, and then it's this like beautiful creature. I don't know if it was beautiful, but it was a creature, and the creature's very thankful, and Chiriho did a great job freeing that spirit. Chiriho actually, doing her job for once. You'd think maybe things are starting to be on the up and up around these parts, maybe, but no, our friend No Face is out and about in the night, seemingly hiding under the bats. He lures in the frog with some gold and then just eats the frog. I thought No Face was going to be good, man, but I was so confused on what was happening. But I guess No Face is a bad character. Although I feel like No Face is going to end up like his No Face's arc is kind of a weird one to study in this movie, but it's kind of one of those like kids movies where the bad guy turns good. I don't know, I feel like a lot of those movies have those. So there you go, with No Face now starting to consume everything and become this huge being. He was just this little slinking around creature who I thought was trying to help Trejo, and there is some sort of special connection there, but I just can't put my finger on. I don't know what it is. I have Yubaba, and now I don't know how to say this politely. What is Yubaba doing with this baby? There's no way Yubaba mothered that baby. It's never really explained what happened with Yubaba and the baby. I don't really know what's going on. It's just this giant baby that Yubaba's like, oh, come here, baby, get out your little thing, or we're gonna hang out. Is that her grandson? Is that just a baby that she's like, it's clearly her like emotional weak spot that kind of brings everything together later on in the movie. But like, I don't really understand that we never really get the dynamics of that. And maybe that's a weak point of this movie overall, is we don't really get like full dynamics on what's going on. We're kind of just like supposed to believe it's Fantasyland and that's fun and that's cool, everything, which is fine. But like deep, hard-hitting analysts like myself are going to be looking out for that type of stuff. So I don't know what's going on with the baby. Maybe I wasn't paying attention. I actually was paying a lot of attention to this movie. So, sometimes things go over my head. I am an idiot at times. So if you know down below, let me know down below in the comments. So Haku, Chiriho is hanging out with Len, but like, it's only her, Where's Haku, the one who can really fucking help? And, Lin is a hater of Haku, whatever. But Chiriho's still holding out for Haku, sees him flying into the paper dragon. There's all these papers attacking him. And it looked like Haku might be in the wrong here, where he's trying to steal a magic seal. And yeah, he's not able to return to his human form. He's in this dragon form, but there's all these papers chasing after him. The paper sticks itself to Chiriho when she goes to talk to Haku. This paper then turns out to be Zeniba, a twin of Yubaba, which is a super funny Yubaba and Zeniba. Great names for these characters, but Zeniba is the twin of Yubaba, and they're not on good terms. Both look the exact same, which is kind of weird to look at in the movie, but yeah, she stops him. She turns Yubaba's, or she takes the seal, or she wants to get the seal back, but she doesn't quite have it. She wants to, or she turns the baby into like this little koala bear type thing, and also turns Yubaba's mini little thing that was flying around into a fly. And they could just change back whenever they want to, but they don't want to because they're having more fun hanging out with Chiriho, who, by the way, the baby was like hitting on Chiriho like 2 seconds ago. So yeah, essentially the movie comes down to Yubaba will rip up the contract if when Chiriho goes to return the steel to Zeniba, that they will return the baby to its form and return the baby to Yubaba. But Yubaba will have to do one final test, which was like, oh no, what could possibly be the test? This is gonna be intense. But I do like the way this movie does have a kind of a soft ending, but there was a lot going on in the middle of it where like I feel like the soft ending is kind of justified. So turns out Zeniba is just the chillest person ever. Chiriho goes over there, and Zeniba's her granny. Like, Chiriho's literally calling her granny. They hang out, they have some coffee or something. She makes cookies. She has a sleepover with No Face, which, by the way, No Face has just been completely, like, neutralized. No Faces could have just destroyed that whole bathhouse if they wanted to. I don't know if it's a he or she, but Chiriho's like the weak point where they're like, bring me Sen, and then Sen like talks to No Face, and No Face is like, all right, I'll stop being a menace. Well, No Face like chases her out of there. It's a whole weird thing. I guess you had to gas him out because he's like running. I'm just gonna assume No Face is a he. He's running out of the place, and as he's like exerting energy, he's throwing up the people. And I didn't see the frog get thrown up, by the way, for the frog being the first one that he consumed. I guess we're just supposed to assume that happened at one point off screen, or maybe I did miss that scene on screen. I don't know, but I didn't see him throw up the frog. I saw him throw up the other 2 people he ate, but No Face is just chill now, hanging out with Chiriho. And No Face can't speak, by the way, so there's that, but it is what it is. So Zeniba's pretty chill. My big guess for the big reveal was that Haku, because we don't know who Haku is. I thought Haku was either her brother or a long lost friend, maybe the friend who wrote her at the beginning of the movie. Turns out Haku is just a river, which is something that I'm still confused about. Where how are you a human and you're also a river and also a dragon? Turns out Chiriho had a memory of losing a shoe in the river, and that's why they feel connected because the river saved her when she was in the river. It's really confusing on how that part really wraps up there, but I guess it's nice. Like it's unconventional for sure. And so Haku is actually a river. Now he knows his name. He might just stay in human form though, because I would who'd want to be a fucking river over being a human. But cool beans for Haku. Haku is one of my favorite, or is my favorite character in this movie. He's a boss. Wrapping up, we have the final test from Yubaba. Pretty hard test because I have to say, she says, look at all these pigs and pick out the ones that are your parents. These things all look alike. Like I still, even when we knew who the parents were, I was like, are you sure that's them? Like they all look the freaking same in this movie. So I don't know. That was a pretty good guess because it's actually a trick question in and of itself. She says it's none of them. And that's true because it is none of them. It was a trick question. So she tricks Yubaba, and Yubaba, despite her being kind of evil, is an honorable woman, and she lets the parents go back to Chiriho, and we have a happy ending mostly where Chiriho walks out with her parents. Her parents really don't know anything that happened and just continue on like it's a normal day. Now, my dream theory, was this all a dream? No, because Chiriho has the headband from Haku, and I guess we're just meant to believe that, Haku lives happily ever after, everyone there lives happily ever after. But this was a fun story throughout, initially an animated movie that seems kind of like a kid's movie, fantasy from a director, who personally I had no experience with. I was a little worried that I would just kind of poo-poo this movie and be easy to crap all over it, but I thought this was a really good story, had me emotionally invested in points. I think, the premise of it's pretty scary. It kind of, like I said before, it kind of reminds me of Coraline. I'm going to give this movie an 8.3. I think there's some really strong stuff here. Easy to follow, or easy to follow, yeah, easy to pay attention to, empathetic characters, interesting stuff going on, but not too much that's like in your face. 8.3 for Spirited Away. So where does this movie compare in the other movies we've reviewed so far? This comes in at number 23 of 108 movies reviewed, tying a bunch of movies in 8.3. So we're getting to the point on the list now, 108 movies, where I'm not going to go in between all these different 8.3s. I will say this is the best 8.3, so almost an 8.3, but Spirited Away, high regards for this one. And this does beat out Isle of Dogs. So I'm going to honor the original Japanese actors and actresses in this movie. We had Mari Natsuki in the original Spirited Away, even though I did watch the English dubbed version. This movie ranks higher than Isle of Dogs, which Mari Natsuki was in. So there you go. New highest Mari Natsuki movie there. And that's all we have for the comparisons. Moving on to what's coming up next in the Dubcast. This has been a rough couple of weeks. I appreciate anyone who's watching this video and who's stuck along with me. I've moved in and out of places. I've been on vacation. I'm going to be in 2 out of 3 weeks on vacation. So I really appreciate everyone. And in the 1 week I was moving in, so it's been a lot here, but we're settled in now. Everything should start coming a little easier. It's summer. There's a ton of stuff coming up. So in terms of movies, the next movie review will be Catch Me If You Can. After that, who knows? I'm actually planning to watch Marty Supreme on my plane ride, and also either Luther Fallen Sun or The Northman. So maybe those movies will be next after, if I don't see anything in theaters. In terms of TV shows, we have House of the Dragon coming back in this month, June 21st. Silo, season 3. The trailer looked a little bit, I don't know, but we'll have to see on July 3rd what happens with Silo. We also have Ted Lasso, Walking Dead, Dead City, and The Bear. There's a ton of shows coming out this summer, so I'm going to try and cover as much as I can. We'll see maybe some shorter term content on some of those things. In terms of sports, we had one last stream this past week with Mikey, Ali, and Matt going over the NBA Finals, our predictions, our picks. So far, I'm looking like I'm the one who's in the wrong, but you'll have to watch the whole video to see the whole explanation there. And we have UFC White House card. I think I'm just going to be doing a short video for that because I will be on a cruise with no internet for the lead up to that. So unfortunately, I won't be able to get together with Shane unless we possibly figure something out like soon, which probably won't happen because I stink at communicating. So in terms of sports, the UFC numbered events will stay. We'll cover McGregor Holloway for sure. And then after that, there's going to be one in August. And then we'll be back to football for sports. So crazy stuff going on there. Catch you guys in the next one. As always, be easy, y'all.